Hi everyone, I'm Raven the Swift. If you haven't watched my channel in a while, Professor Raven. I'm a Warlord Sword Knight in the game of Amtgard. I also am a world champion in the game of Buhurt or Armored Combat Sports, and I do a lot of content for foam fighting and steel fighting. Today we're going to review a video by Warlord Vansen, and I probably messed his name up, and Warlord Bell. Vansen is a relatively new warlord out of the West Coast, and Bell's a seasoned warlord and sword knight at this point in Amtgard, and we're gonna get right into it. So I have a little tool here to help me to draw some lines and stuff. We're gonna use that when the time is appropriate. Um, for the purpose of this fight, we're not going to talk about if a shot landed or a shot didn't land. We're going to be very respectful of these fighters, and I'm trying to give the best diagnosis of what's going on, and maybe give a little bit of advice for both of them. We'll see what happens. So right away, you notice Bell is actually used to being the taller fighter. I think Bell's probably 6 foot, 6'1" maybe. Vanchen is quite tall. I think he's probably 6'2", 6'3", maybe taller than that. It's hard to tell. You're gonna notice right away both of them have center grip shields, and they're both gonna use a replacement style of sword and board fighting, where basically when they throw with their sword, they're gonna be covering with their shield, and which means they're gonna be moving their shield quite a bit and covering up for their holes. It's gonna be a lot like medieval buckler fighting, actually, or Viking shield fighting if you do that. Nice little feint there by Vanchen. High low, high low. Bell is quite the cerebral fighter and offers a lot of different things for his opponent to think about while he's fighting. Lots of passive baits, passive attacks, feints, little setups, and stuff like that. And he's also really, really smart in his analysis of approaching situations. Got the Simo clean up there. As we progress into these fights, you're going to notice that these fighters start to um, make pathways and solidify their strategies against one another. You're going to see Vanchen start to develop here as he starts closing more ground on Bell. That's actually quite close for both of them if you notice that. And if you need to think about why people start making these developments in a long form fighting like this, well, basically these guys have very similar styles in that they both like to fight at long or mid range and do a lot of countering and counter what their opponent's doing. Well, they're both relatively the same height. They have the same equipment loadout, and stylistically, they are both kind of do that. So what will happen is one of them will come push to shove. One of them will start changing. Whoever is usually losing the most typically starts to change first, and then the other fighter, now that they're not having to deal with something that's the exact same as them, will also start to address that issue as well. So we notice that Vanchen will I want to make sure Vansen. Yeah. We'll notice that Vansen starts closing range, and we'll notice that Bell will stop fighting mid so much, and he will start punishing Vanchen for poor positioning as he closes range on Bell. He'll start throwing combos at him and stuff like that instead of doing passive baits and counters. Putting pressure on Vanchen, see what he's about. Nice counter by Bell. Bell notices, I'm just going to go back. Bell notices that Vanchen, as he presses in, when he goes to defend himself, he kind of stays in the pocket and doesn't move out of the way. Kind of, in a not so nice way of saying it, he kind of folds under the pressure a little bit. Vanchen is moving around his opponent more than his opponent is moving around him. Meaning he's giving ground, he's giving position and stuff like that as pressure is being put on him. They exchange there in the middle. And a little counter there. This is such a nice counter by Bell. And one thing I want to know here is Bell gives a little bit of a feint, and then Vanch is going to move his guard a lot, and then Bell's going to throw just a little snipe there, hit him in the wrist. Watch how much Vanchen's shield moved. And I want to point this out at the foot positioning too. Vanchen's standing shield foot forward, And Bell's standing sword foot forward, meaning with this particular setup, Vansen is using a punch shield. He's more likely to move his shield more, and because he's standing shield foot forward, he's going to be exposing more of his body, and his offensive tool, his short sword here, is behind his shield, meaning he's going to have a slightly slower time at countering, whereas Bell here will have the tempo advantage. And watch how much Vansen, his shield and his foot. So he caught him when he switched stance. Now, why does that work? Because Vansen's going to bring his sword foot forward, squaring his shoulders and his hips, making this arm more available to Bell. Watch how he squares his feet and he gets caught in the hand. Boom. And it's just little stuff like that, little positioning nuances that really make up if you're getting hit or you're not getting hit. Good blocking here by Vansen. I think he gets a nice hit block. Got hit a little bit. But I would say for his left hand, his left hand is actually not that bad. He gets some good hit blocks. I think he actually takes the fight. Nah, I didn't. Got wounded, but hard to do in that position. Hard to take the fight back. But he does it one at a time. And even just that little thing. I'm going to go back because this is a lot too. Vansen's going to come out, give a little bit of a stutter here to Bell, but he's going to move his equipment a lot. And just because he moved his equipment and Bell didn't, Bell doesn't have to spend any resources to open up Vansen. Vansen already did it for him by throwing his little feint. Vansen's guard's high here a little bit. This is a tough situation for him to deal with. There are times when you're fighting single sword versus open, when you need to retract your guard and pull your hand back, and stylistically that might change for certain people, but pulling your arm back sometimes, not like chainsawing, but moving it down out of the lane so it can't be targeted, and forcing your opponent to throw at your body can give you advantages in fighting, and it's just something else to look for. Because in this situation, Bell's like, well, I can throw at every single area on his arm, and he's wounded, so he can't hand block. In times like that, it's like, stylistically thing nowadays, I like to just move my hand out of the lane, and then force my opponent to throw a body, or become more aggressive and try to throw a body on my opponent. I also like this little, just subtle things that Bell does that I love, that is very characteristic of someone who is a seasoned fighter. Bell's going to throw a little feint here. See if Vansen reacts to it. He notices that he doesn't react to it and just calls him on his bluff. See? He moved his hand down. He saw Vansen wasn't going to throw across. So he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to get his arm. Bap! And just tapped his arm. Bell is so active with his active baiting that it makes it hard to deal with sometimes. I want to go back to this thing as a footwork thing. So Bell initiates sword foot back money shot to Vansen's sword foot back block. Let's see if I can slow this down for you guys. And what we're going to see happen here is Vansen's going to switch his stance mid-exchange, causing his shoulder to open. His shield side shoulder. So he switches stance. Bell goes to throw this money shot. Vansen squares his feet, exposing the shoulder. Bam. You have to be very cautious with switching your stance when your opponent is close enough to hit you, and debate on what you're giving up by doing that. I personally like to do that a lot, but you have to know what you're giving up, and you have to do it somewhat intentionally, or understand the nuances of those positions. This is also another thing. Vansen's, remember, talked about changing your styles as things happen. Vansen is going to start feeling the pressure on him from Bell being aggressive towards him. So instead, Vansen's switching it up and putting the pressure on Bell. Well, there's slight positional nuances that come with knowing your style. I'm going to guess that I don't think Vansen closes range with people that often because he is so tall. Most people have to close range on him. And we're going to notice that his foot position and his hand position on certain things is just off enough to make him disadvantaged as he closes range. Hand position's good, shield position's probably good, Bell threw the shot, not bad. But he stepped forward again. Stance is a little wide. If we look down, Vansen actually is, his foot's probably towards Bell's sword foot, and Bell is actually on the inside of Vansen's guard. So if we go back, when he closes range and Bell goes to throw the shot, Bell actually has the positional advantage. Bell throws that. He's going to throw a board side shoulder. Vansen steps up into towards Bell's sword side. Bell has an advantage towards Vansen's open sword side here. And he gets it. See, even if you look at their feet, Bell is actually positioned on the inside of Vansen's guard, making him be able to be hit right there in his inside sword side shoulder or body. If that makes sense. You have to know that when you're closing range on people, they are also trying to cut off and create angles against you, or deny your angles and create angles for themselves. And when that happens, you need to know how to defend against it, or just have an educated guess on probably what they're going to throw. I would probably say had Bell thrown sword side shoulder twice, Vansen would have been fine, but he didn't, which is also another kind of seasoned Warlord lesson, is that there are some times where you throw twice at the same location, but very rarely. You should almost always be throwing to separate locations. Because your opponent's moving their guard to compensate, because you need to give them different context of where they can be hit, throwing twice in the same location does work sometimes, but it depends on your opponent. They'll get caught in the arm there a little bit. Why did Bell get caught in the arm there? So we're going to say Bell's feet are very close together, in both vertically and laterally. I think he didn't. Vansen also just dug for that money shot a lot. So I'm guessing Bell perhaps didn't think about that. Because the only thing Bell could have possibly done was stayed lower in his stance and shifted instead of kind of come up and over. He could have shifted laterally a little bit. I know that kind of feels different, but you can look at the level change that Bell makes in his stance when he comes up. That kind of makes him exposed to this money shot. Versus if he would have kept his stance low and then kind of slid, he may not have gotten hit by it. But that's the shot that Bell went for, right? He went for this high cross, so he came up and had to come for it. So that's what you give up when you change levels like that, right? If you're going from low to high, you're susceptible to being attacked low. Vansen doing a good job at keeping aloof with his feet, not overcompensating with his equipment that much right now. Nice. I really like that he waited for a good opportunity to bring his sword into play, and when he did, he actually made it work. That's good wisdom. Cleaned up the fight, hitting Bell in the leg. They get nothing in the exchange. Both of them backed up, reset. Vansen prodding from range here. So now we have something that happened that's funny, is that they've shifted again to where now Bell is being very aggressive towards him. Vansen's able to keep range, and they've kind of flip-flop stylistically. And in good fighting, you'll see this a lot, where like one fighter will start to adopt one set of behaviors, the other fighter will then react to that, and it's just back and forth of adapting to each other. You'll see it for a few fights. You'll see someone adapt again, and then sometimes they stylistically change more, sometimes less. So this is interesting. So Vansen had been keeping range and backing straight up, Can I use my tool here? So Vansen had been backing straight up here, keeping range from Bell and minimizing the available attacks that he can be hit by. Because if you notice their feet, Vansen's foot is lined up with Bell's rear foot, and Bell's foot is kind of like there. So there's a slight angle advantage, but not really. They're relatively square with each other. Bam, bam, bam. They're relatively square, and what happens is that Vansen's going to take an angle and square his feet, making him exposed to Bell's attack. Bam! Right there. Vansen's feet are square. Bell has an advantage here. He's perpendicular. What do you guys think is going to happen? Vansen's taking this lateral step. His weight is on this foot, right? Bell is in the middle of a shift. He's bringing his rear foot forward to there, right? Let's see what happens. I mean, I think you guys already seen it before. But look, they're perpendicular with each other. This is probably saying that Bell is going to throw a left-right combo. He didn't need to, because Vansen actually threw the opening for him. Bell was set up to throw that combo, but look what happens. Vansen still square on him, throws a cross in his guard, while Vansen has to return to guard, right? He's going to bring his hand back, leaving him up into this. And look at the end position. Square. Not square, but some positional advantage. It'd be really nice if Bell was over here a little bit, but I don't think it mattered. Notice we can't see both of their feet, which means I don't think either of them can move. And meaning Vansen can't use his footwork to defend himself, and Bell is going to get this sweet inside slot shot. And that's the end of the fight. So that's been the video. You guys can ask me about any questions you might have, or my analysis of these fights. This is the first video I've done in a while, mostly because I didn't want to, but I'm feeling pretty good about it now. I'm going to do more of these videos. If you have any videos you want me to watch, go ahead and send them over to me on Facebook. On Facebook, I'm Adam Harrigan. Or you can join my Discord, which will be in the link in the video, and you can post your videos there. Anyway, I'll check you later, guys.